As if stripping the coronavirus relief bill of a federal minimum wage hike wasn't bad enough, Senate Democrats have now decided to limit the eligibility for direct checks that Biden promised to Americans and had campaigned on. So understand that what we're gonna see in the final version of the Senate relief bill is an offer of economic relief that's actually less than what the Trump administration offered. Okay, that's how awful and stupid this is. But let me give you the details. They want to do more means testing. So every American who filed individually, meaning filed your taxes individually and makes up to $75,000 will still get the full amount before it begins to reduce at incomes above that. But rather than zeroing out at $100,000 in earnings as the last COVID-19 relief bill does, the Senate bill will cut off payments at $80,000. For couples filing jointly, incomes up to $150,000 will still get the full amount, but rather than zeroing out at $200,000, the Senate will cut off payments at $160,000 in earnings. Now, this is relevant for a number of different reasons. First of all, it doesn't really save that much money from the $1.9 trillion proposal that Biden put forward. It trims about $12 billion, but where's that money going to be redirected and why? Like, why would they make this decision? It's so stupid, especially when you consider that people who qualified for the checks under the Trump administration and under Republican leadership are not going to qualify for those checks under Biden. And Nando, this also doesn't do away with the problem that we had with the means testing to begin with, which is it relies on tax filings from 2019 unless you somehow miraculously already have filed your 2020 taxes. So it doesn't even take into account that, hey, you might have made a great living in 2019, but if you lost your job because of the coronavirus pandemic and haven't filed your 2020 taxes, well, they're gonna base this means testing on what your income was before the pandemic hit.
Yeah, Trump gave people $1,200 check and then $600 check, which amounts to $1,800. And now the Biden administration is gonna give people $1,400 and is gonna give fewer people that amount of money. So it's so stupid from a purely cynical political calculation to do this. I mean, first of all, like you said, it saves $12 billion from a $1.9 trillion bill. It makes literally no difference, especially from a deficit standpoint. Like, it's not gonna make any meaningful difference. But when elections are so close, like even this election, which Biden won by what, 7 million votes in the popular vote, but like in the states where the elections are decided, the margins were razor thin. You're gonna strip people, you're gonna like penalize people that voted for you. You're gonna give fewer people money. This is just asking for a bloodbath in the midterms and in 2024. It's just asking for, people are gonna be angry. People that qualified for the check, and they're gonna see all their friends get the check. Their friends who may make just slightly less than them, they're gonna qualify for the check, and they're gonna be resentful of it, and they're gonna be resentful of the guy in power. They're gonna be resentful of whoever it was, and they're not gonna know the little intricacies of the inner negotiations between Joe Manchin and the White House or whatever. Like it's beyond stupid. And to think that they couldn't strong arm Manchin, to think that Manchin is gonna sink the entire 1.9 trillion coronavirus relief bill over, whether the checks phase out at $75,000 or $85,000. It's just insane. It's not understanding. It's not understanding where you have leverage and where you have power. It's giving away power for nothing, for literally nothing. He's not gonna sink the bill. He's just not, like, for all the bloviating about Joe Manchin, and I get it, he is not going to sink this bill. Had they stood firm, he wasn't gonna sink it. It's just, he was just not gonna do it. It's political malpractice. It's political malpractice.
It's a must pass bill. It is a must pass bill. Understand that. So, and I'm not saying that to you, Nando, I'm saying that to everyone. Like, it has to pass, meaning that if I don't think that progressives in the House, and there is a big enough caucus in the House right now for progressives. I don't think progressives should vote in favor of this legislation because, of course, since it's now gone through changes in the Senate, it has to go back to the House, and the House has to approve it. I don't think progressives should vote in favor of it. Especially given this new means testing, given the fact that they took out the $15 an hour minimum wage. And I mentioned that it's a must-pass bill because Democrats, including progressives, are like terrified that voters will be upset with them if they don't vote in favor of this legislation and get it passed immediately because people need coronavirus relief. But if we get to that bridge, the way that you cross it is by saying, we think Americans deserve more. We don't want this means testing, and we think that workers, many of whom have been considered essential workers and have been underpaid for putting their lives at risk to do their jobs, they deserve a $15 an hour minimum wage, minimum.
Yeah.
But they won't do it. They're cowards and they're afraid to do it, and that's what is incredibly frustrating about this. And then this is the brick wall that we've run into thanks to the legislative filibuster in the Senate. And the fact that you don't have senators, Democratic senators, doing everything they can to fight back against this legislative filibuster, to nuke it, to ensure that they can open the pathway for actual policies to pass is also infuriating, right? Yeah. Manchin says he's going to stand in the way of doing it, but I think that if you understand your own power, if you know how to apply pressure successfully, you can do it. I think the people are actually behind the provisions that we want in this coronavirus relief bill, and I know that people are sick about hearing about this ridiculous, arbitrary legislative filibuster in the Senate. And one other person I'm definitely sick of hearing from is the majority whip in the Senate, Dick Durbin, who's very good friends with Joe Biden and is about to explain to you why it's a great idea to screw over the American people, even though it's politically unpopular and will lead to a bloodbath for Democrats in future elections. Take a look.
We know that Manchin has asked for changes. He wants to see it, he says, more targeted. He wants to change the weekly unemployment benefit from $400 a week to $300 a week. He wants to have the stimulus, the $1,400 stimulus checks be more targeted, people probably making less than $75,000. Are you concerned, or what's your level of concern about Senator Manchin's vote this morning?
Well, I can tell you, I was part of the group. I've been working with Joe Manchin, going back several months, trying to get bipartisan solutions. I think we all applaud that. In a 50-50 Senate, that reflects reality. And the meeting yesterday was very respectful. Remember, the president sat down with the Republicans who were part of that group several weeks ago. He has been open to listening to their ideas. He believes, and I do too, that we need a massive investment in America right now for the vaccine, for distribution, for helping families that are struggling, unemployment benefits. Joe Manchin's approach, as he said, is not to cut the amount of money, but to target it. It is not an unreasonable request, and I think we should try to find some common ground, if we can, without compromising the relief package that absolutely needs to be passed.
David Schuster shared the fact that Joe Biden didn't even bother to lobby Manchin on the $15 an hour minimum wage hike. Didn't even bother because he doesn't care and he didn't actually want it. I'm not even really speculating. I mean, he's met with corporate executives. He's been dealing with the US Chamber of Commerce, crying and whining about how, even the unemployment they want to scale back because they're worried that the $600, I'm sorry, not even $600, $400 a week unemployment insurance is just too high. And corporations are unwilling to compete with that amount of money to get workers motivated to work for them. So they would rather see you suffer with, insufficient government aid at a time when you've lost your job through no fault of your own. Because they want to make sure that you feel forced to take a low-paying job that you have no other, options to do, like other options for. Like that's what they want, and Biden is listening to them. That's why, framing Biden as someone who's like, working real hard. Dick Durbin too, working real hard to persuade Manchin. No, they're not. No, they're not. They got together with Manchin. They got together with conservative Democrats and asked, "What do you guys want?" And we're gonna do it. Now, so far, Nando, they're not going to The way they're framing it is that they're not cutting the unemployment insurance benefits from $400 a week to $300 a week, which is what Manchin and other conservatives, Democrats wanted. But that is a lie, by the way, and I'll tell you why. The initial coronavirus relief bill proposed by Joe Biden extended the unemployment benefits through September. Then you had Republicans and conservative Democrats pushing back on that. And now it's gonna be extended through June. But there was no news coverage on that. And the way that it's being covered makes it appear as if it was through June all along, that the initial bill didn't propose extending it through September. But just know that the initial bill wanted to extend the $400 a week unemployment insurance benefits through the month of September. They caved on that as well. And that's the version that passed in the House, by the way.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's infuriating, especially because there is no benefit to these conservative Democrats. There really isn't. It is pure muscle memory at this point. It's just, this is just what they assume politics is from a bygone era. There is nothing that they can gain from these from negotiating against themselves. It really is mind-boggling. Like those deficit hawks, they're gone. Like they were defeated. Like no one really cares about them anymore. No one listens to them anymore, really. So it's just that's what's so infuriating about all of this. And what it's gonna do is it's giving a giant gift to the Republicans and the right. Like I get that the Democrats are against the wall and they want to do it because they don't want these unemployment benefits to run out in March, and they have to do something quickly. But negotiating against yourself and giving less money than the other guy, that's the only thing that registers. Trump did better in November than he was expected to, despite the pandemic and all of the insanity of that, because of the $1,200 checks and especially the expanded unemployment insurance, which was pretty generous. Like that is why Trump outperformed the polling in November. That's it. Like that's it. It's not rocket science. That's what it was. Had he not done that, he would have lost way bigger, And so giving money to people is one of the most popular things you can do because it's something that they can understand. It's why he put his freaking name on the check, which by the way, Biden should do as well, if the checks ever do come out. And that's how people process politics in the real world. I get that people who watch TYT every day and people like us, we process it differently, but the vast majority of people, the American people, they process it in a much in those simple terms. That's what has an effect. That's what moves the needle. So yeah, it's just absolutely infuriating.
And look, let me remind you guys, there was a period of time after the $600 a week unemployment benefit ran out, where Congress couldn't come to an agreement on what to do. They were stalling, and Trump just stepped in and he decided to redirect some of the government funding toward extending it himself unilaterally. It wasn't enough, it was $300 a week, but he single-handedly expanded the unemployment insurance. And I know this because my husband was a bartender who lost his job and had that benefit. And all of a sudden, we see a check in the mail for $300 and we're like, oh wow, Trump wasn't lying, he actually did it. And there are tens of millions of Americans out there who had a similar experience, people who qualified for the checks under Trump who will not qualify for the checks under Biden and under Democratic majorities in both the House and the Senate. That's what they know, that's what they see. And for anyone who thinks that this isn't gonna harm the Democratic Party, I mean, it's naive, and honestly, they deserve it. This is malpractice. You should be smarter than this, but they're not.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.